Welcome back, fight fans. I go by the name of Barak.
And I'm Barak, the boxing bully.
And I enjoyed my weekend, my boxing weekend. Of course, hopefully you guys enjoyed yours. It's obvious when there's boxing, I have a great weekend. And
what do you mean obvious? What if your fighter loses? What if you're going for Callum Smith and he loses? Like, oh, damn, this sucks.
All right, maybe all of my weekends aren't great when boxing's on. And there's a possibility that I might have been leaning towards Callum Smith because of the DAZN connection, Matchroom, and so on and so forth, and wanted to see Bivol on DAZN against, Callum Smith or the winner. But let's not act like we didn't want to watch the fight that's ahead of us right now. So you know what we're talking. That's right, Beterbiev, Callum Smith here on the opening bell. And Barak, I'll say this. Callum Smith has been looking phenomenal. Not that he's been in a ton of fights, but since the Canelo loss, he moved up in weight. He showed power. He showed boxing ability. And the notion of him being able to upset Beterbiev became a little bit more realistic to some fight fans.
True.
Even though Beterbiev is a monster and a machine and, one of the hardest punchers in all of boxing, on a lot of people's list, we thought that maybe that size, that length, can pose a threat. Barak, we didn't get that. Did you, for a moment before this fight, think that maybe Callum Smith, because of the way he's looked and his size and his length, could pull the upset off?
Well, I definitely thought that because Callum Smith is taller, he's longer, and he has Buddy McGirt in his corner, and I know Buddy McGirt is gonna say, jab this guy the same way he did with Kovalev versus Canelo. So that's why I thought, and he has some pop. He's one of those guys that usually don't fight on the back foot. He's usually, the aggressor. So I thought there was a possibility. We've seen Beterbiev hurt before. Well, some say he's been hurt. Maybe he can hurt Beterbiev, but it's not necessarily because of the prior fights Callum Smith had at 175. I just thought that level of competition really doesn't tell me anything.
Oh, it's easy to say that now after the fact, after him losing to Beterbiev in hindsight.
But I was definitely feeling that way. I was like, Beterbiev cannot be compared to anybody. First of all, anybody at 175. So if you're knocking guys out with one punch, to me, that means nothing compared to that level of fighter. So that wasn't the reason why. I just thought with his height and his reach length advantage, that maybe he'd be able to keep the distance properly. He really didn't do that against Canelo, but you learn from things like that. You look back and say, man, you know what? I should have stayed off the ropes. While I was on the ropes, Canelo was hitting me, was hitting my arm, and that's how I lost this fight.
Yeah, it's
that's
easy.
I thought we was gonna see that guy. The first round, think about it. I think about the first round. We kind of were seeing that. We were seeing a guy jabbing. We were seeing Callum Smith jabbing Beterbiev, and we thought, oh, okay, but he just wasn't keeping the distance with his feet. And that's how you keep distance, with your feet. So you jab at the proper distance. He was jabbing when he was in range of Beterbiev's shots, and that was the difference right there.
Look, Barak, most fighters, even fighters on an elite level, don't have great footwork. A lot of people can say that it's the footwork. And I can count on one hand in the last 30 years on guys that have phenomenal footwork.
You 30 years?
Yeah, honestly, it's not something that's common. Footwork is I'm talking about great elite fighters have been able to win with other attributes, whether it's athleticism, whether it's power, whether it's timing, which is also a very important key. But I'm talking about distance and footwork. You're talking about Willie Pep. You're talking about Pernell Whitaker. You're talking about Floyd Mayweather. You're talking about Shakur Stevenson. And I'm trying to just touch on different eras, right?
I think it's when you're a power puncher, you don't want to waste shots like guys who use their distance, and they're not always trying to hit you hard, like a Lomachenko. He's not always trying to hit you, but he's scoring. Power punchers don't necessarily like to just score. They like to hurt you with every shot, and that's the thing. Sometimes you got to throw giveaway shots. Sometimes you just got to throw punches, and they all can't be the same speed. They all can't be the same level of intensity, and that's what it is. He was trying to let go of that right hand every single time, and you need to plant your feet in order to do that. But when you're fighting a guy that punches as hard as Beterbiev, You got to be on your toes. You got to be able to use your distance and soften him up to get to that point where you can hurt him. Because even his corner was telling him, you know, Buddy McGirt was saying, jab, don't worry about all that other stuff. That's going to come. But it's got to be established by the jab.
Yeah, easier said than done. And you mentioned, you know, you fight one of the hardest punches in boxing, Barak. But I want to add to that. You're fighting a guy that is a very good boxer and doesn't get credit for it all the time. And I noticed it against Joe Smith. I mean, these little nuances. He has this nice little short pullback, and he's slick with that right hand coming over the top. And we all know it comes with a lot of power. So people don't give Beterbiev credit for his boxing ability, and I think that's to their detriment. I think people going into certain fights against this guy thinking, all right, we have to just be careful for the onslaught, the power. But no, there's boxing ability and tricks there that people don't notice. So you have to go in this, you have to be at your best. Distance, using a jab, a lot of things against this guy because he can actually box. Now, I want to shift gears and talk about what's next for him. I mean, there can't be another fight outside of the Bivol fight. This is the only fight that needs to happen for Beterbiev. Am I right?
Absolutely. According to ESPN, Bivol already agreed to his side, you know, and we're talking about there's no other hurdles. I mean, the money is there because this fight is going to be in Saudi Arabia. And if you listen to what Bob Arum said, that's the fight he wants to make, Beterbiev versus Bivol. So it sucks that it's taken this long, but we're here. And they don't necessarily have to be in their prime. Who's to say who's in a fighter's prime? And what I don't like about that prime word is that when we say prime, you could be talking about physical, or you could be talking about their mental game. Floyd wasn't in his prime as Money Mayweather, but he was a better fighter. He was able to win without having the power, without having the combinations. So he became a better and smarter fighter. So prime doesn't matter. It's about how dominant you are still in the sport. So they're both very, very dominant. So this is the right time, no matter what. It doesn't matter that Beterbiev next week is about to turn 39 years old. You know, they're still the most dominant in that division, in the sport, and they need to fight each other. So it looks like that's the fight we're going to see next, and no other fight makes sense.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly about the prime talk. You know, people would like to emphasize age, and we know that that's important, but there's no better time, but there's that factor where Beterbiev is 39, right? Or be 39.
Yeah.
So people will bring that up if he should lose to a Bivol. They'll talk about the age. They waited too long, and that's sad because obviously this guy, he is in his prime. I mean, maybe not in age, but what he's able to do in the ring, I mean, he's one of the top guys in the sport, no question about it. And we'll talk about his win. I mean, does he deserve to be on the pound for pound list? I mean, that's something that people are going to talk about. Look, we just created a list recently. I think it's difficult. There's so many guys out there, and we don't know why. I'm not sure if he cracks the list, but this performance deserves a lot of credit, even though Smith is not a current champion. He's a former champion, and he's looked good at 175. I think there are a lot of factors. The criteria is very intricate when it comes to the pound for pound list, because you have to talk about dominance, power, skill level, ring generalship, accolades. This guy's been at the same weight class. He hasn't won in different weight classes, so I think that plays a part. But I think the key factor is here the level of opponents. I'm not saying Beterbiev hasn't fought really good fighters, but has he beat an elite fighter, elite talent? I don't think so, and I think that's why maybe a lot of people don't have him on the list, but he's definitely one of the best fighters in the world.
Well, he's definitely on some people's list already, and I feel like I can't argue that at all. And after this win, if you have him on there, fine. You know, it makes sense. He's definitely a dominant force in the sport. Understand, I want to say that when you said he only fought in one weight division, it's kind of like Errol Spence. He only fought in one weight division, but there were names. There were popular names like Danny Garcia and Sean Porter and guys like that, and Kell Brook, that he dominated, you know, and that's what got him so high on that pound for pound list. So, but when you're talking about Beterbiev, He's been a champion for a long time. Bivol has been a champion for a long time. So you're talking about 6 years. They've been the best in the division for 6 years, and they haven't fought. So they've been fighting everybody else. What gave Bivol that super push is fighting Canelo, who was the pound-for-pound top guy in the world. So that's what got him on that list so quickly and so high. But for Beterbiev, it's just harder because you're fighting guys that are not ranked that high, that are not that great. So it's harder, but then again, you're being very dominant, kind of like Triple G early in his career. Some people had him on a pound-for-pound list, some people didn't. They were like, whoa, he's killing everybody, but he's not fighting big names. He's not fighting guys that are great, you know? So it's a tough place to be, but I won't argue if anybody has him on a pound-for-pound list. I think we're in an era where you got 15, 16 guys that need to be on the top 10 pound-for-pound list. You know, they're gonna be 10A, 10B, 10C, 10D. That's how good guys are in this era.
No question about that. And lastly, Barak, I'll touch on this. After Bivol's last performance, which was solid, I mean, big win, right? Against not an elite talent and a guy that arguably got into a mode of survival in that ring to some degree. And I don't want to take credit from the guy, but that's what I saw. Going into yes,
you don't give the man no credit. No, you're right though. I do think Bivol was trying to get the knockout.
But after this Beterbiev performance, in that Bivol performance, even though Bivol, you always bring up, is great at distancing and coming in and out of spots, but he does get hit at times. Who's gonna go into this fight as the favorite is the question.
Wow, great question. I would say the favorite would be the guy that has the 100% knockout ratio. You know, it's not like a Deontay Wilder that he just knocks you out with one punch, but it's kind of like that Gennady Golovkin strength, you know? So I think maybe the favorite would be the harder puncher, maybe. But if you ask me, and plus he has the 3 straps, it's kind of like, I don't know. Maybe even some people would be saying Bivol is the favorite because of his distance and his dominance coming into these fights. I would probably lean towards Bivol because he fought Canelo, because he's a master at distance. You know, think about it.
And he's beat the better opposition.
Yeah, I would say he beat the better guys, you know. But I could see in that division, the guy who's been reigning the longest and has the 3 straps is Beterbiev, so I can understand him being the favorite. I just think that the style that he needed to fight was somebody that has footwork like Bivol, who knows how to keep his distance, who doesn't sit there and commit. He'll throw a 1-2 and a 1 just to get away. You know, and if he's able to do that all night and not stay on the ropes like he did a couple of times with Canelo, I don't know, he might be able to cruise his way to a victory.
And let me emphasize, Barak, the reason why it's so hard to pick the favorite is because this indeed is one of the best matchups in all of boxing. I mean, we just saw one in July in Spence and Crawford, and there are a lot of great matchups in boxing, but very few like this particular one. So we need to uplift this fight. We need to talk about it. We need to cover it. We need to let the casual fans know that this is a phenomenal matchup, and I believe it will happen. So we'll find out who's the favorite when it happens, whether it's Saudi, Vegas, wherever. I'm excited about this one. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Peace and love. Stay safe. We're out of here.